welcome to the Bible class of Jews for Jesus with Bob Mendelson.
Tonight we're reading Judges chapter 13 and maybe chapter 14. We're going to look at the beginning of the life of the last judge whose name is Samson, Shimshon, from Shemesh, meaning sun. And maybe his name means sunshine, maybe his name means sunny, we're not quite sure. But it certainly is a word for light. The sun is the great place of light. And if you think about that, he should be the lightest and brightest, since he's the ultimate of the judges. I remember the story of the young executive on his first day at the new job. He approaches the boss's office. He knocks at the door. "Come in, son," the boss says. "Sir," says the young executive, "do you have any advice for me today?" "I'm just beginning," he says uncomfortably. "Sure," the boss says. "Make good choices." "Great, thanks for that, boss," and walks over towards the door. He stops, turns back around, says, "Excuse me, boss, how do I make good choices?" The boss looks up from his pen and he says, "Experience." "Ah, thanks." So now he moves again towards the door, stops at the doorknob and says, "One more thing, boss. How do I get that experience?" The boss looks up from his paper and says, "Bad decisions." Today we meet the final judge in the book of Judges by the name of Samson. His story is told over 4 chapters, 13, 14, 15. We will probably take 2, maybe 3 sessions to get through this. We're introduced to the setting, as is common in Judges, with the words of chapter 13, verse 1. "Now the sons of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord, so the Lord gave them into the hands of the Philistines 40 years. Typical of the situation in this continual story. The pattern is clear. The continual bad decisions and bad choices of the people of Israel are summarized in the last verses of Judges. Just look at chapter 21 of Judges, verse 25. This is the haunting reflection. That sin of doing what's right in your own eyes instead of doing what God wants characterized the people of Israel in the days of the Judges. It certainly characterizes Samson, and sadly it characterizes the 21st century in which we find ourselves. This summary of the condition of the Jewish people in Judges is so sad, it almost makes one depressed or anti-Semitic or something. But remember our pattern. God listens to our cries, delivers us even when we don't deserve it. So it will be in this case, in chapter 13, that God will make a barren woman, an unnamed wife of Manoah, to bear a child, and he will deliver Israel in a way. I'm so glad to know that no matter our condition in 1933 or 1994 or today in 2018, that God will bring his word to fulfillment and make things happen according to his will. His will is to keep Israel. Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan. He that keeps Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. What psalm is that? 121, that's right. The angel of the Lord appears to the wife, not to the husband in this story, and not to them together. Let's look at that. Verse 2. There was a certain man of Zorah, of the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah. His wife was barren, had borne no children. We've heard that before. Then the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, "Behold now, you're barren and have borne no children." Like, thanks, buddy. Rub it in. "But you shall conceive and give birth to a son." Now therefore, hear the instructions. "Be careful not to drink wine or strong drink, nor eat any unclean thing." Isn't that interesting? Things that we know today as normal. If you take narcotics as a pregnant woman, your child will be a drug addict on birth. The angel knew back then. No surprise. Verse 5, "For behold, you shall conceive, give birth to a son. No razor shall come upon his head, for the boy shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb. He shall begin to deliver Israel from the hands of the Philistines." She's to avoid certain foods and drinks for a reason. Verse 5 says that this kid's going to be a Nazarite and he's going to deliver the Jewish people. If you were not a Bible reader and only reading this story as if Pushkin wrote it, you would think this child would be a hero from his youth. He's to avoid certain foods and drinks and razors and fight against the enemies of the Jews. In this case the Philistines. Maybe he would be a powerful and strong boy. And if you were writing such a story, you might include some dangers like monsters or big and powerful human enemies, rocks falling, ships being tossed in the rough winds. And then our little hero would conquer everyone. And like everything in Hollywood, they would all live happily ever after. But that's not the case. Not in the tale before us. His Hebrew name from the root Shemesh, meaning sun. You would think his parents Manoah and his unnamed wife would have named him something like Keeper of the Vow or Son of Nazir, since the only thing the angel of the Lord told them was that he would be a Nazirite and had a few regulations on him that were strictly told to maintain. So the story in chapter 13 is very detailed. I guess someone near or close to Samson wrote it. The repetition of the visitation by the angel of the Lord in the exact language over and over makes me think this. So let's keep reading. The woman came, verse 6, and told her husband, saying, a man of God came to me. His appearance was like the appearance of the angel of God. Very awesome. Like awesome's not enough, but yareh ma'od. And when we say awesome, we're not saying cool. Yareh meaning fearful. To be afraid of him. And this is God, for goodness sakes. And I didn't ask where he came from, nor did he tell me his name, but he said to me, behold, you shall conceive, give birth to a son, and now you shall not drink wine or strong drink or eat any unclean thing, for the boy shall be a Nazirite to God from the womb to the day of his death. So you get this repetition of the story, whereas most of the Bible you would either hear it from the narrator or from the person who said, I saw a vision, and this is what it was. We get both, which amplifies the story and amplifies the purpose of Samson to the reader, which makes me so sad when I read the rest of the story. Because doggone it, if they had just said, the angel came and said, try really hard. Make him into a good little Jewish boy, take him to synagogue, make him learn his Aleph Bet, and by the way, keep him away from foreign women most of the time, and then if he doesn't, all right, don't worry about it. If there were some negotiation in the story, that might be palpable, might be helpful, but there isn't. It's this standard that is severely high that says this kid should never eat anything not kosher, he should never shave his head, razor here or here, both, hair all over the place. No wine, no strong drink. The standard is so very high that once he starts experiencing life, you as the reader ache. No, your mom was so good, your dad was so good trying to keep... man, Samson. Yeah, a Nazirite who doesn't cut his hair is somehow already a vow maker. And you cut it, and that's the end of the vow. So he, from his pre-birth, is dedicated to God, like Hannah had done, like Miriam had done with their children. Well, actually, Delilah's not the barber. Last week we looked at Shibboleth and Sibboleth, and it's just the way your lips purse or your accent, the way you talk a little differently than somebody else, that kind of thing. Shazam. It's just the way it is. So Miriam, Mariam, Mirjam, it's just all different. So the angel visits and she repeats the story. Well then, verse 8, Manoah entreats the Lord and says, hey, that guy who is here, let him stop in and see me too. Now I'm not sure if he thinks this is just an I don't know that he actually thinks this is an angelic visitor. I think he thinks this is a holy person who has come, and how come he's talking to my wife? He ought to talk to me. I'm the dad in the story. Well, whatever it is, it doesn't say, but that's my conjecture. So verse 8, Manoah entreated the Lord and said, O Lord, which in this case is two different lords, by the way. He entreated Jehovah and said, Adonai, literally master. Please let the man of God whom you have sent come to us again, that he may teach us what to do for the boy who's to be born. Because I don't trust my wife that she reported accurately. I mean, think about it. Let him come and teach us that we might know. Wait, he already did. Well, that's it. That's right. It was a bad choice. Right. So God listened, however. God bless Manoah, who had this chutzpah to talk to God this way. Verse 9, listen to the voice of Manoah, and the angel of God came again to the woman as she was sitting in the field, but Noah, her husband, was not with her. Wait a minute. The guy, come over to the house. The guy is there, right? Angel, you got this wrong. So the woman ran quickly and told her husband, finally, right? Behold, meaning, okay, buddy, don't miss it. Quit writing in your journal. Come on. The man who came the other day has appeared to me. So Manoah arose and followed his wife. And he came to the man and said, are you the same guy who spoke to my woman? Just want to nail this. Are you that man of God fellow? And he said, I am. Ani. That's all he said. I. Manoah said, now when your words come to pass, what shall be the boy's mode of life and his vocation? The angel said, let the woman pay attention to all that I said. Was she not listening? Did she not report to you what it was? I mean, I love this, that the angel is giving him a corrective. Manoah, I'll try to talk to you because I thought I explained this pretty well to your wife. She should not eat anything that comes from the vine, nor drink wine or strong drink, nor eat any unclean thing. Let her observe all that I commanded. So now this is the third time we hear the same repetition of the commandment vis-a-vis Samson. You think this is, if you will, an orchestral kind of, the violins start, and then the timpani is added, and finally the horns are blasting, and all the orchestra is playing together, Samson shall be holy. That's what it's saying. Nobody in the orchestra is missing out. Nobody in the hall that's listening to the orchestra can miss out. This is clear as it can be. Manoah then, in verse 15, said to the angel, stick around for lunch. Please, let us detain you, Atzar, detain you so that we may prepare a young goat for you. You know what that would take to prepare a goat? You know what it takes to when you go into an Indian restaurant and order balti gosht? You know, it's going to take a while, right? Imagine if the animal is still alive and you got to kill it and you got to not only slaughter it, but then prepare, get the blood out and do all the drink. It takes a lot of time. The angel said, though you have detained me, I'm not going to eat your stuff. But I tell you what, by the way, he said, I won't eat your food. Isn't that what it says? But the Hebrew is lechem, meaning bread. I won't eat your bread. Because all meals begin with bread. But, the angel said, if you prepare a burnt offering, so this is the olah from Leviticus, the burnt offering that we gave to whom? Completely to God. That was burned up. Nothing came to the priest. It was all consumed on the fire. By the way, in the old King James version of the Bible, the burnt offering, you know what it was in English? Holocaust. If you prepare a burnt offering, then offer it to the Lord. Manoah didn't know that he was the angel of the Lord. So Manoah, the whole time he's having this conversation with this fellow, thinks he's just a fellow. He doesn't know that this is the messenger of the Almighty, the angel of the Lord, who has shown up again and again in Joshua's day, in Jacob's day, in so many people's day, Moses' day. Manoah said to the angel, well, what's your name? So that when your words come to pass, we may honor you. What does that mean? After the baby's born, what are they going to do? How are they going to honor him? Name the baby after the angel. Right, so that's how they want to honor him. Because she's barren. She's probably 40 years old, doesn't have a child in that society. That's a death knell to Manoah's continuity. It's a shame in that society. Not today, but it's a shame in that society that woman doesn't have a child. So we want to honor you, O angel. What's your name? The angel said, why do you ask my name? Seeing it is, what does it say in our version? Wonderful, but the Hebrew, Pela. What version are you reading? Where did you see incomprehensible? Oh, is that a little note or something? No. Wonderful. The same word used in Isaiah chapter 9. See if you can find it. Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 6. Tell us where this is when you get to it. Isaiah 9:6. This Messiah who is predicted in Isaiah, his first name associated with him is Pela. Pela Yoetz, wonderful counselor. El Gibor, mighty God. Sar Shalom, Prince of Peace. This idea of an Aviad, the Eternal Father. All those names of the Messiah, attributes, distinctives by the which we recognize whoever it is, he's going to be that. Pele, not the soccer player from South America, but rather this is a wonderful God. Some therefore say that this human being born to the Virgin in Isaiah 7, who is given to us in Isaiah 9, will be called Pele, Yoetz, El Gibor, Sar Shalom, all great titles for God or Messiah. So when the angel here in Judges says, why do you ask my name since it's Pela? Some folks think he's indicating that he's an appearance of the Son of God before he came to earth. They call this a theophany, or in theology they call it a Christophany, the appearance of the Christ. I personally don't believe this is Yeshua for many reasons, but if people believe that, it won't hurt them. That sometimes the angel who encounters Jacob or encounters Joshua, sometimes they say things, and here they say things in such a way that you think, and it could be God. Well, if it's God, how is it the angel or messenger of the Lord? I'm happy with people arguing. Verse 19, so Manoah took the young goat with the grain offering and offered it on the rock to the Lord, and he performed wonders while Manoah and his wife looked on. It's the same word. He performed wonderfuls. He performed miracles. He performed something. We're not quite sure what it was that he did. For it came about when the flame went up from the altar, verse 20, toward heaven, that the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame of the altar. When Manoah and his wife saw it, they fell on their faces to the ground. The angel didn't appear to Manoah or his wife again. So you get this picture. It could be Yeshua. People argue for this. I love that they're so passionate. I'm okay with that. Well, one reason is it wouldn't make the incarnation special. When Yeshua came in the fullness of time 2,000 years ago, if he'd already been here again and again and again and again, so he's here again. But it was a one-off moment when he came for good. That's my number one reason. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying I don't think it is, but there are plenty of godly people who do think it is, and I'm not going to say they're wrong. I'm just going to say I don't agree. I know that we cannot both be right. We could both be wrong. They're called the angel of the Lord or angels of the Lord, ministering spirits. That's what and that's the argument, and the Peniel of Jacob and this circumstance. So you get the idea that there's enough deity there that it could be God. Again, I'm beating a dead horse. They fell on their faces. Verse 21, now the angel of the Lord didn't appear anymore. Manoah said to his wife, yikes, we are in trouble. We're going to die because we have seen God. So wait a minute. According to Manoah the theologian, he's not a theologian. According to Manoah the theologian, that angel of the Lord was God. But his wife was sharper than he was. If the Lord had desired to kill us, he wouldn't have accepted a burnt offering and a grain offering from our hands, nor would he have shown us all these things, nor would he have let us hear these things like this at this time. God wanted to kill us. Why did he rock up? Why did he show us who he was? Therefore, this can't be God in her understanding. You see how that fits? But it looks like God because of the God stuff and the Pella and the miracles and the burnt offering. To whom were burnt offerings given? To the Almighty and only to him. So it's wondrously confusing. And I appreciate that about the Bible. I don't need everything answered, but the angel didn't do that. I don't know what wonders the angel performed, but together with his disappearance into the flames, it was enough to convince Manoah and his wife this was an angelic visitation. Verse 20, they bowed low. Manoah got scared. We're dead meat. She replied this was silly logic. If God wanted to kill them, why would he have told them about the baby? She's very convincing, and the next thing we see is the baby's birth. Boom, just like that. We go from this pre-gestation to the birth. That was a quick, rapid 9-month collapse. Father and mother said, the woman, verse 24, gave birth to a son, named him Shimshon, and the child grew up, and the Lord blessed him. I don't think this is used of any other judge in the book of Judges. The Lord blessed him. You get this picture of the this majestic one at the end of that orchestral, symphonic, voluminous, beautiful response of all the instruments. And then you see bum bum bum, and the birth comes, and the baby grew, and God blessed him. You think, boy, this is going to be a good story. He's going to knock them dead. You know, we've had some good judges. Doggone it, this guy's going to be a winner. And the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him in Machane Dan between Zorah and Eshtaol. By the way, the whole geography that's listed here is important. Dan, what do we know about the tribe of Dan vis-a-vis modern geography of the Jewish people in Israel? What do we say? If we want to talk about the expanse of the land of Israel, we say it goes from not A to Z. What do we say?
From to Manasseh?
No. from north to south, but we use it tribally. From Dan to Beersheba, the city down in the south. We say, you want to talk about Israel, it goes from Dan to Beersheba. That's right. So Dan is up north now. Tribally, they had to move. Originally, they were down west of Jerusalem, about 20 miles. Between Jerusalem and the Gaza, very close, in the Shephelah. In the valley, the flatlands, between Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip. That's where the story, that's why he's a Danite, and that's why he's in Machaneh, or the camp of Dan. Okay? Chapter 14, look at us, verse 1. Samson went down to Timnah and saw a woman in Timnah, one of the daughters of the Philistines, came back, told his mom and dad, "Woo! I saw a woman in Timnah, one of the daughters of the Philistines. Get her for me as a wife." Man, she was a knockout. I mean, she was a babe. And his father and mother said, "Aren't there any women among the daughters of your relatives or among all our people? You have to go get a shiksa from the uncircumcised Philistines?" Samson said to his dad, No, get her for me. She looks really good to me." Really? That's all it is? The outside appearance? It's just shocking. After the Lord blessed him, after the Lord has given him all these trumpeted blessings. Well, look how chapter 13 ends. I should give you the word. The Spirit of the Lord is stirring Samson. But the Hebrew word is pa'am, to trouble Samson. The Spirit of the Lord troubled him. And I don't know exactly what was the trouble. Maybe it was that he was somehow bound to these vows, the no shaving of his hair, so he couldn't look like a Gentile in the neighborhood. He had to be different. Couldn't have any wine with dinner. Couldn't go out for a drink with the boys after the rugby match. Doggone this whole vow thing, this whole religion thing. The Spirit of the Lord was troubling Samson. Do you get that? That's why he goes and he sees a shiksa goddess and says, "I'll take that, thanks a lot." The story seems to say that Samson has a plan to use her. Wonder if he was actually falling to the trap which would eventually knock him to his own death. And yet, is Samson listed in Hebrews 11? Yes or no? He is. He is. So he's a man of what? Faith. A man of faith? Wait a minute. This doesn't look very faithful. In the short list of the 4 judges from this book who were listed in Hebrews 11, there he is. So his cleverness here in chapter 14 is probably accurate. Sometimes our very strengths are what get us in trouble. We don't know how weak we really are, and thus we lean on our strengths instead of on the Lord. Some of you know that I read Oswald Chambers in his devotional that he wrote, that they wrote from his sermons 100 years ago. It's called My Utmost for His Highest. I read it fairly devotedly in a devotional sense. He said this one day, quote, "We are apt to say, it's not at all likely that having been through the greatest crisis of my life, I would now turn back to the things of the world. Do not," he says, "try to predict where the temptation will come. It's the least likely thing that's the real danger. It is in the aftermath of a great spiritual event that the least likely things begin to have an effect. They may not be forceful and dominant, but they are there. And if you're not careful to be forewarned, they will trip you. You have remained true to God under great and intense trials. Now beware of the undercurrent, what we call in Australia the rip. Don't be abnormally examining your inner self, looking forward with dread, but do stay alert. Keep your memory sharp before God. Unguarded strength, Chambers says, is actually a double weakness, because that's where the least likely temptations will be effective in sapping strength. The Bible characters stumbled over their strong points, never their weak ones. End quote. I tell you, that rips through me like a hot knife through butter. It is my strength that has got me in trouble so many times. I'm over that. I'm so sure I got this one licked, and it comes back to bite me. I'm not aware that in the moment of greatest spiritual conquest, I'm leaving myself open. If you know boxing, you know that when you're hitting with your strongest punch to the person across the boxing ring, that you're actually the most open and most defenseless. Yeah. Oswald hits it, Samson depicts it. Samson convinces his parents to go to Timnah, which is in Philistia, not far from their home, due west, there at the Gaza Strip, okay, to get a woman whom he has seen to be his wife. On their way, a young lion approaches. I've never seen a lion in Israel. except at the zoo. But apparently in those days, young lions roamed the earth. Approaches, and without so much as a stick, Samson captures and rips the lion into pieces and kills it. Look at verse 5 and 6. Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother, came as far as the vineyards of Timnah. Behold, a young lion came roaring toward him. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, so that, salach, with like hatzlacha, with prosperity, so that he tore him as one tears a young goat, though he had nothing in his hand. I don't know if I'd use that, as one tears a young goat. I think tears maybe a piece of paper. I've never torn a young goat. But I get the picture that this was as easy as Larry for him, right? Easy peasy. But he did not tell his mother or father what he'd done. So he went down, talked to the woman, and she looked good to Samson. God is trying to trouble Samson. Samson is rejecting that trouble and going out and making it easy on himself. That lion, I can handle that. Rip. But when he rips a young lion, he fails and is ripped by the beauty of this Philistine woman. He's most defenseless at that point. Yeah. Because why is he recorded in Hebrews 11? If all we see is his failures, something's missing. And we're not going to miss it. So don't worry. We will get it. Probably next week. They make it into Timnah. The story collapses into a short chapter. Look what he did, and by the power of the Spirit of the Lord, verse 6, came on him and he ripped up the lion. I mean, this wasn't his own human strength. This is God's Spirit who allowed him to do it. Why did he have to rip up a lion? They make it into Timnah. The story collapses into a short chapter, but probably lasted months. The key is the 7-day period of the riddle, verse 14. He went down, talked to the woman. She looked good. He returned later to take her, verse 8. He turned aside to look at the carcass of the lion, and behold, a swarm of bees and honey were in there. So he scraped the honey into his hands and went on, eating as he went. Sounds like Winnie the Pooh. Well, that's bees, they're in the desert. The Gaza is not exactly flourishing. When he came to his mother and father, he gave them some, and they ate it, but he didn't tell them that he'd scraped it out of the body of a lion. There was some prevention of their falling into sin, that he caused them not to sin by not telling them from where it came. Okay. So he was honorable in there. So his father went down to the woman. Samson made a feast there, and the young men customarily did this, and they saw him, and they brought 30 companions to be with him. Samson said, "Let me now propound a riddle to you, if you will indeed tell it to me." Verse 12. Within the 7 days of the feast, and find it out, then I will give you 30 linen wraps and a whole lot of changes of clothes. We've already seen these changes of clothes earlier in the book of Judges as a depiction, not that he went down to Target or Kmart and picked up, a couple pairs of shoes and a pants, trousers. No, this was lavish. This was years worth of clothing expense. This is grand. But if you're unable to tell me, then you'll give me 30 linen wraps and 30 changes of clothes. They said, come on, babe. We can handle your silly riddle. So he said, out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. So they couldn't tell the riddle in 3 days. So on the 4th day, they said to Samson's wife, hey, trick your husband, entice him, lure him, see if you can patach him, see if you can get him to tell us the riddle, or we'll burn you and your father's house. Oh gosh, she's caught between Iraq and Iran. No, Iraq and a hard place. Terrible. I'm so sorry.
But we won't just burn it, we'll burn it with fire.
Well, that's it. And we've seen that before. Burning it with fire was what was done to the Ephraimites. Remember? Have you invited us to impoverish us? Is this not so? So they're saying, hey, woman, choose sides. You're a Philistine. This guy is from the Danites. You're hanging out with the wrong team. He's teased us for 3 days. Go get the answer, or else we're going to turn you into ashes. Samson's wife wept before him and said, you must hate me and don't love me. You've propounded a riddle to the sons of my people and haven't told it to me. He said, well, I haven't told it to my mom or dad either, so why should I tell you? I haven't told anybody. So she cried 7 days while their feast lasted. Feast is a wedding feast. This is a marriage feast. In modern days, we have hens parties, the Sheva Brachot, the 7 blessings that are sung at the nuptials, one for each of the 7 days of the festival. Today we segregate it into hens parties, and the groom's guys go out and have parties, and there's the reception and the wedding rehearsal and all that. In those days it was 7 days. That helps you understand why Jesus had to make 80 gallons of water into wine during the middle of that festival. festival because they still had more days to go. It wasn't just do a trick, Jesus. So Samson's to marry this woman, but the day before the wedding, which would have been day 6, he submits to her tears and tells her the solution to the riddle. She mocks him, submits the answer to the boys of town. Samson gets really angry and goes to kill 30 others, take their garments, and pays off his wager with the men of Timnah. Samson's fiancée marries his best man, and in verse 19 we read this: Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, and he went down to Ashkelon, that's just the next town north, and killed 30 of them, took their spoil, gave the changes of clothes to those who told the riddle, and his anger burned, and he went up to his father's house. So instead of the father-in-law burning, Samson burned. Samson's wife was given to his companion who had been his friend. A very terrible ending. Samson is a man of faith, to be sure, and filled at times with the Holy Spirit. What we learn of him today and next week will guard our hearts and guard our bodies and guard our spirits so that we can continue to be men and women of faith as well. Anger doesn't work the righteousness of God. Lust doesn't work out God's purposes. False alliances will not help anyone. Samson had a duty to honor God as a Nazirite and stay away from vineyards and from foreign women and from their food. He failed over and over, yet God calls him a man of faith. I'm so glad God wants our hearts and not our perfection. We're not perfect. We commit sin. I'm not saying let's go out and sin. I'm saying we will do that. That's to err is human. I'm not excusing that, but the reality is here. We fall short of God's standards, and yet He loves us and wants us to draw on His grace and forgiveness. Amen?
Amen.
Our response to what He tells us via an angel or via the Scripture or from wherever our instructions come will determine our future. Like the young executive, make good choices, even if you had to learn by making bad choices. Choose well, and you will do well. We don't know what we would have done. That's Judges 13 and 14.